Continuing education knows that at the end, students want to graduate, and we can help them do that because we take the time to really listen to their needs, and we understand all the different options that are available across the campus for them.
We don't take a cookie cutter approach. We realize each student comes with their own story. So whether it's a part-time student looking to complete a degree program or someone just looking for online courses, we're there to connect them to the resources of the university.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Conference on World Affairs. My name is Erick Mueller. I will be your moderator today with 4 amazing guests here sharing information about a super interesting topic. So today is Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. It is 2 p.m., and this is panel number 18186. The title of our session today is Improving the World Through Innovation, Investment, and Entrepreneurship. Got a few things to read as an introduction, and we'll jump into learning more about our guests. So University of Colorado is Colorado's flagship university. We honor and recognize that many contributions of indigenous peoples in our state. CU Boulder acknowledges that it is located on the traditional territories and ancestral homelands of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Ute, and many other Native American nations. Their forced removal from these territories has caused devastating and lasting impacts. While the University of Colorado Boulder can never undo or rectify the devastation wrought on indigenous peoples, we commit to improving and enhancing engagement with indigenous peoples and issues locally and globally. We will do this by recognizing and amplifying the voices of indigenous CU Boulder students, staff, and faculty in their work, educating, conducting research, supporting student success, and integrating indigenous knowledge, and finally consulting, engaging, and working collaboratively with tribal nations to enhance our ability to provide access and culturally sensitive support and to recruit, retain, and graduate Native American students in a climate that is inclusive and respectful. And then one other element that's, I think, one of the coolest elements of CWA is that all of you get to ask the key questions. I will tee up a few questions to get things rolling, but then be thinking about what would you like to learn from our panelists, because we'll have about 20 to 30 minutes for each of you to ask what questions you'd like to ask. And how that works is that we have a number of producers here. Everybody raise your hand real quick so we can see in the back, all right? And at any time during our session, simply raise your hand. And one of our producers will show up with a note card and a pencil, and you can write your question down. Please note if you're a student, we give priority to students in terms of Q&A, and then they'll bring that up to me, and I'll incorporate those into the session as we go around. Sound good? All right, great. So let's jump in. Oh, by the way, who am I? I'll introduce myself as well. So my name is Erick Mueller. I'm a teacher here at CU, and I'm the executive director of the Deming Center for Entrepreneurship. Of note for this panel is that I've led an economic development program called Rural Colorado Workshop Series for the past 11 years, where we've helped over 800 rural and native entrepreneurs start and grow ventures. In addition, I spend a month every year in Cape Town, South Africa, with my good friend Luvuyo down there, helping disadvantaged entrepreneurs and townships move their ventures forward. Shout out to our students that have gone with us to Cape Town over the years and will go with us to Cape Town. Raise your hand real quick, actually, it'll be super fun. So this is a crew that's gone with us to Cape Town over the years as well. So super excited to be a part of this panel. So thrilled to be joined by just an amazing group of panelists here. I'll start off to my left, John Heffernan, president of the Foundation for Systemic Change. He has over 30 years of experience in leadership roles in international development, human rights, rule of law, democracy and governance, humanitarian relief, and post-conflict reconstruction projects all over the world. He lives in DC with his wife Maggie and kiddos Olivia, Sophia, and Isabella. So a fun fact about John here is that there's an actor with the same name that was in the movie Sting, and I just learned that John actually went to Broadway and saw a play with this actor as well. And a quick shout out, John recently released a film called American Agitators, and just this weekend won Best Documentary Film. So welcome.
Hey.
Yeah. Thank you. So welcome, John. Thrilled to have you here. To his left is Amir Shevat, who is a general partner at Dark Mode Ventures, an early stage investment firm focusing on SaaS or software as a service firms, and focused on AI solutions as well. He previously, I think he worked for every top tech company in the world. Previously was VP of development for Twitch, started the Google Tel Aviv office, and was in leadership roles in Twitter and Slack and others. He's also the author of a couple of books on emerging technologies. He lives in Austin, Texas with his wife and kiddos, and cat and dog, I understand. And fun fact about Amir is that he has a fiction book that he wrote and edited, but hasn't released yet. And I understand it's a trilogy.
It's a trilogy.
So maybe in his opening remarks, he'll share a little bit about what this trilogy is all about.
Okay.
We might be, one of the first readers. And to Amir's left is John Skajem. John is CEO of First Corporation SA, and previously was the CEO and head of investor relations and corporate development of Huddlestock, which is an investment platform company. And he led that company to its IPO and European expansion. He lives in Oslo, Norway, with his wife Gino and his 5 grown kiddos. And John has a couple of fun facts I think we're all going to appreciate. One is that John is a buff. By the way, I forgot to mention Amir's kiddo is a CU buff as well, right?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
tuition dollars to CU. We appreciate that, Amir. Thank you. And John Skajem is a buff, graduate of the Leeds School of Business, and was just last year inducted into the CU Athletic Hall of Fame as a member of the Alpine ski team. So we have a round of applause. And then the other thing I learned about John as I was learning about his awesome background is that he owns a country farm south of Oslo where he raises horses and alpacas. So pretty cool. Welcome, John. So glad to have you here.
Thank you.
And on the far left is Luvuyo Rani. Luvuyo's just an amazing person. I've known Luvuyo for about 15 years now. And Luvuyo is the co-founder and CEO of Luto Technologies and founder of the Solulo Foundation. In addition, he's the co-chair of Africa Forward, working to achieve sustainable development goals by 2030. I don't know how you sleep, Luvuyo, with everything that you do. And in the past, he's been awarded as the Social Entrepreneur of the Year by the Schwab Foundation. And he lives in Cape Town with his wife and son. And I can vouch for this fun fact. So I confirmed this with Luvuyo. I said, okay, I want to share a fun fact. Are you okay with this? He said, yes, that's great. So Luvuyo's fun fact is that he is a damn good dancer. So now if somebody comes up with music, maybe somebody in the background, if somebody comes up with some music, we might have to ask, maybe all of us will just get up and dance at the end.
I think we need to just scrap the session altogether and have him dance, right?
I think that would be worth the attendance value here. We just might have to plant the seed there. So once again, welcome to all of you. Thanks so much for taking the time to share your insights with our community as a part of CWA. And again, I'm going to tee up a few questions, or I'm sorry, they're going to introduce themselves with their opening statement. I'll tee up a few questions, but then be thinking about questions about what you'd like to learn from our awesome panel. So with that, each guest is going to share an opening remarks for 3 to 5 minutes around this topic of improving the world through innovation, investment, and entrepreneurship. And John, please start us off.
Sure. Well, thank you, Eric, and it is a pleasure to be here. I think this is the 4th year that I have come to this conference, and I love coming to this conference. And it's such a great opportunity to meet so many people, and it's people like you and people like you that make this conference a very unusual conference, and one that I'm not a conference guy, and I came the first year sort of reluctantly, and then I, with each succeeding year, said, how do I come back? It really gives me a lot of food for thought, and very much appreciate being here. So with regard to the subject of this panel, when I first saw that I was on the panel, I thought, well, why? I don't think of myself as an investor or an entrepreneur. I think that perhaps I am a social entrepreneur, but I don't come from the private sector. I've spent my entire life in the nonprofit world, largely as a human rights activist, running human rights programs around the world in many, many developing countries. So what I would like to sort of bring to the table, if you will, is that perspective, is how I think that when you're talking about how to reduce inequality vis-a-vis entrepreneurship and investment in the developing world, it's imperative that there are certain components that are also solid factors that will help you succeed in terms of achieving that successful entrepreneurship. One being human rights. I mean, without a solid understanding and following of human rights and the principles of human rights, I think that there's a higher chance of you failing if you don't have a government of people that follow the basic edicts of human rights, the rights to dignity, the civil political rights, the rights to expression, the right to religion, economic, social, and cultural rights, the right to education. This is all, I think, imperative in terms of trying to reduce inequality. I also think a robust civil society writ large is a key factor that can hold people, private sector, government, accountable. This is obviously a key component to what we're experiencing here in the United States right now. I've done this in places like Guyana. I worked in Guyana for 2 years for the National Democratic Institute for International Affairs, which was really about how do you improve democratic structures. And I think that is key too in terms of institutions and how to make them more democratic. And most importantly, I think, and that sort of covers all of these areas, is how to approach this through mechanisms that don't focus on quick fixes, if you will, but rather long-term systemic change. I run this foundation called the Foundation for Systemic Change. And I created the foundation 40 years after being a human rights activist because I saw so many things that I had worked on coming back and hitting me right in the butt and thinking, why is this? And I think one of the key factors is that so much of what we do, whether it's private sector, whether it's nonprofit sector, is focusing on quick fixes without looking at what the real cause of the problem is and without looking at what needs to be addressed from a systemic point of view.
Awesome. Thanks, John, for kicking us off. Amir.
Oh, wow, that's a tall order to match. So, thank you, Eric. Hi, everyone. I'm the other side. I just joined this. This is my first panel in this event, and I'm super excited. I've met so many awesome people here, and everybody has this energy of like opening up their thoughts and thinking outside the box and being able to talk to each other in an amazing way. I'm thinking about the problem of innovation for a long time. So when I was at Google, my job was and it's crazy, I know, but my job was to go around the world and analyze why entrepreneurship fails around the world, and what can Google do to make the same thing that we have in the Silicon Valley all around the world. And you find, to John's point, there's like systemic problems all over. So for example, in Tokyo, in Japan, there's no limited liability. So if you open a startup and it fails, you lose your house. In Korea, it's very much around culture. So your mother tells you, why, are you a loser going to a startup? Go work in Samsung. In Brazil, it's all around the time it takes you to open up and close up a startup. In Brazil, it usually takes a year to open a company and 2 years to close it. So think of it, even if you start building a company, it takes just the paperwork is so cumbersome. So I was thinking for a long time about the horizontal needs of the world in order to create more innovation. One thing I'm sure is that whenever there's a lot of innovation, there's more jobs, more things that benefit humanity, and it creates amazing experience for people. So at a certain point in life, I found out that this is my mission, to create platforms for people to innovate on. And I've done that in Microsoft and Google, at Slack, at Twitch. Now I'm focusing on what does it mean for a team that has gathered to look at the edge of the technology and what can we do with that? So what can we do with AI? Everybody's talking about AI. Everybody has a ChatGPT in their phone. But what does it mean for our society? What does it mean where we are going at most 5 years, have colleagues that are AI in our workplace, where our doctor is going to use AI to help us, where everyone is going to have a co-pilot that will help them do their job. And AI is just an example. How do we think about open data? So one of my last investment is in a company called Blue Sky, which is basically the non-toxic version of Twitter with an open API. So what if you could, as a user, look at all the data of the public conversation and derive insights from it? So I'm looking now more of like, what are the things that are changing in our world and how can they drive innovation to benefit humanity? That's my thought process right now.
Awesome. Wow. Thanks, Amir. John.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Skajem. I'm very pleased to be here. It's also my first year to be on the panel, and it's quite interesting. I'm also very pleased to be back in Boulder. It's a fantastic place, and for those of you who are local, I'm envy. But nevertheless, we get to come here at least a few days now, and that's fantastic. Now, in my professional life, I am in finance, in investing, and in banking. And for the last 5 years, I've been developing a fintech company that has started from scratch, and now we have a turnover of about $10 million, and we're operating in 5 different countries in Europe. It's a platform that allows for everybody to participate in the investment side of the capital markets. So for very small fees and sometimes free, you can trade and invest and do all the things that the professionals do. It's somewhat similar to what you do here in the US. You have Robinhood is one of the platforms, and we have that in Europe, basically. And then I left that company after we went public, and now I'm working for a family office based out of Switzerland, where we invest in predominantly technology, in raw material, in bank and finance. That's our key aspect. And I've always been very fond of Africa. Spent a lot of time in northeastern part of Africa. And later, hopefully, I'll be able to tell you about my African model. How can we change things in Africa? But we'll get to that a little later. But I have a few little statements about what we're going to talk about as well. And when we talk about improving the world, we often turn to government, policy, and philanthropy. But increasingly, the most transformative levers for change are now found in the hands of innovators, investors, and entrepreneurs. Why? Because these are the people who ask the bold questions, push the limits, think outside the norm. What if this could be done better, faster, differently? And then they go out and they actually do it. So this is the key importance. And at its core, innovation is about solving problems creatively. It's not just about technology. It's about reimagining systems. Microfinance rethought access to capital. Telemedicine reimagined healthcare delivery. Renewable energy is reimagined how we are powering the planet. But innovation doesn't thrive in a vacuum. It needs, of course, the bold people to do it, but it also needs capital. Investment is how we vote for the future with our money. Whether it's venture capital, impact funds, private to public partnerships, the flow of funds determines what gets done and what does not get done. And one of the most exciting shifts, particularly for me, is that we're witnessing how digitalization is democratizing finance. Fintech platform, blockchain technology, and mobile banking are expanding access to capital in ways that weren't possible a decade ago. A farmer in Kenya can now access microloans through smartphones. A startup founder in Bogota in Colombia can crowdfund her idea on a global platform. Retail investors can now support climate tech and community development projects that were once reserved for the institutional funds. Digital tools are lowering the barriers for entry, not just for entrepreneurs, but for everyday investors. That's not just innovation, that's inclusion. And it means that more people can participate in shaping the economic future and not just consume it. But this transformation also comes with responsibility. We have to ensure that these systems are transparent, secure, and truly equitable. Otherwise, we risk reproducing old inequalities on just new platforms. And then there's entrepreneurship, the engine of action. And entrepreneurs take risk, they operate in uncertainty, they create jobs. Innovation, like mobile payments or off-the-grid solar, is helping leapfrog outdated infrastructure. Investment, especially in the impact-driven, is unlocking growth in places previously deemed too risky. Entrepreneurship is creating local solutions for local problems, whether it's agricultural, education, logistics, or healthcare. So here's the big idea. Improving the world isn't just about disruption. It's about designing better outcomes. With innovation as a spark, investment as a fuel, and entrepreneurship as the driving train. And when these three factors align, they don't just power economies, they expand dignity, opportunity, and ownership. We're not here to admire the challenges. We're here to build solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. A lot of people wanted to clap on. Yeah, just organically, like, awesome. Thanks, John.
That was a full breath.
So insightful. Thanks so much for that. And Luvuyo, please share your opening thoughts and remarks.
No, thanks so much. I came in Colorado in 2011. It was my first trip to America. I was connecting to Oklahoma to spend time with Dr. Morris. And so I have a session with a student, but it's the first time coming to a conference. And it's been a really great, part to be here. I'm honored to be here to share and also learn and connect. And that's kind of like the great thing now. Just on my journey, I've been a social entrepreneur for the last 21 years in South Africa, based on seeing the need of digital divide. So many young people in the township and rural areas could not able to access to the computers, the internet, and finding employment, start their businesses. And that's why we started with the tech hub in Kailicha, which is the first night cafe, Kailicha, and it grows to become one-stop center, where now it's a business and a career center now. So we've got these centers across, part of South Africa and in different parts of South Africa. And we also having a kind of a blended model, which is franchise and also owned centers. And the franchise are owned by former staff members, former students that study with us. Now they're owning this franchise. And we've done something that was innovation that no one have done it before, is to give opportunity to our staff members to own means of production now. So we went to funders for investment. We put, like a surety, because they're not in surety now, because in Africa, the biggest barrier, is the access to capital and is access to funding. So we put our name and say, and we show them the modeling that able to work now. And that model to work, it was based on the ESA program. When the ESA, came in South Africa, it able to build with that, because it was a student that came from Colorado and Oklahoma that they came to Cape Town. They built this franchise model to be able to go to the funder, and it was an innovative way that when the funder loved this kind of idea. So that was one part of the journey. And now, with working with the entrepreneurs still, with the collaboration, working with Dr. Morris on the UPBI program. So we work with the entrepreneurs now, work with the entrepreneur in the township now who are looking to grow and scale their businesses to extent that they are struggling to get access money to government, access money to big businesses, and because no one knows them, and they kind of been seen that they are not investable. So we go out and able to tell their stories to extent that we mobilize them, their resources, and that's what the innovation we've done. That. And then thing that I do now, it's kind of realizing that alone I cannot able to change and shift the system. This is systematic now, so I have to work with a movement now of the social innovators, so that the policy from a government can able to be shift and change now. Because this is where the change is going to come from policy, from a government now. And what I'm seeing so far, there are 3 things I've seen now. There's huge social capital has been built for social entrepreneurs. So because they are part of our program, now they've got that social capital. And secondly, the community of entrepreneurs coming together in these communities. And then the third, the ecosystem. That working with the different partners that are seeing us as enabler for that now. But on a bigger scale, then what I'm also excited and I'm seeing, and it becomes an opportunity now, that in Africa, currently we're sitting at 1.3 billion people. The next 25 years is going to be about 2.5 billion people, which means that in every child being born, out of 10 child, 4 will come to Africa. That brings an opportunity now in terms of how do you deal with the employment for these young people that are going to come to Africa now. How the entrepreneur, the innovation and investment become much more important now. And you've seen already the movement around the culture, the music, the fashion, that Africa now is kind of coming in now, able showcasing that now. And we are beginning in a different, exciting movement. And that's why it's like this kind of topic become much more interesting, because the energy that is coming in the continent is amazing. The innovation ideas now, what is missing? It's to believe in a continent and bank and fund those kind of ideas.
Wow. Thank you, each of you, for those opening remarks. I don't know about you, but I've got 30 questions I'd love to ask. So as a reminder, please raise your hand. In about 10 or 15 minutes, we'll throw it over to you, and we'll share what questions that you have. The title of our panel is Improving the World Through Innovation, Investment, and Entrepreneurship. I thought it might be fun to focus on each one of those words real quick. And it just so happens that each of you have a certain expertise in each one of those areas. So, Amir, if it's okay, I thought I'd start off with you, with your innovation background. What can we do to further support innovation in the US and around the world?
So, yeah, I think innovation thrives when people connect. We did an experiment at Google where we created like a shared space called Campus. And Google is a very online company, so it was very hard for it to think offline, to have a shared space to bring entrepreneurs together. But we did that. We took a full floor in one of our buildings and told entrepreneurs, hey, you can come here, we'll bring designers, we'll bring phones, we'll bring events, and you can work together. And it was shocking to see how well it worked. How humans, when you bring them together, like unicorn companies were created out of that. And my manager at the time thought it was a bad idea. He said, like, it's a bad idea, but do it as part of your 20%. And it's Google, so you could do whatever you want, at least at that time. And it became so impactful and became such a center for innovation that then we took it and we copied it to 7 other places around the world, to Rio de Janeiro, to Tokyo, to Greece, and it worked. No matter what the culture was, you brought people together who have ideas, who have an ability to create, who have interdisciplinary capabilities, and amazing innovation happens. So I think like if you create what I think the Silicon Valley is really all about is concentration of these people together with a lot of capital, to the point of the speaker before me. So like if you have a lot of capital and you have a lot of smart people connecting together, you can create the Silicon Valley anywhere. And I think that's my key takeaway from the early days of like seeding innovation in multiple places.
Wow, powerful. So simple. Innovation equals connect.
Yeah.
And then John, next, Skajem, with your investment banking background and wealth of experience in banking in general, what are one or two suggestions that we need to do to in the investment world to improve the world?
Fantastic question. I wish I had that crystal ball to be able to identify all of those issues that come about. But I would say that from a investment standpoint, the most difficult problem is to identify the good and the little better and the great ideas from the not so good. There are enormous amount of ideas coming about, and there's enormous amount of enthusiastic entrepreneurs that wants to have funding. And some are being successful, as you said, becoming a unicorn, but it's very difficult to figure out exactly what is the best. And nowadays with the AI, everything is AI now. Even if you're a gas station, you're an AI now. And it's just amazing how that the world is talking about all these jargons and slangs, and very few people actually know what they're talking about. And this is kind of the problem for a simple investor to figure out who knows what they're talking about and who doesn't. So, but I think something we'll talk about a little bit later is investing in mature developed countries versus investing in developing countries. Yeah. But as I said, I love investing in up-and-coming businesses where people actually co-invest with you and they're enthusiastic about what they're doing. And the most important thing is that you invest in the people. Invest in the people that knows what they're doing and have the drive. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And Luvuyo, on this word entrepreneurship, what are two key recommendations you have that we do in regards to entrepreneurship to improve the world?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be done. I mean, to solve this problem, and it's across kind of the world that is needed now. The key is to create a culture of entrepreneurship.
And how do we do that? I mean, how do we do that? How do we create a culture of entrepreneurship?
I mean, how do you create a culture? And I think something that early stage of my journey, I used to struggle with. I mean, because it's difficult to dream something that we never seen before. If you don't have unicorns, you're able to create unicorns. I mean, that becomes so you need success stories and role models that people can look up to, that they can identify similar with them, that able. So we need localized heroes, which are entrepreneurs, that are succeeding against all odds with minimum resources, funding, but through the innovation and entrepreneurship that I'm able. So those local heroes can able to be supported. That's one. We need some case studies from academics to understand in terms of like the data, what's like the entrepreneur that are kind of, and the psychology of entrepreneurs in the township and informal areas, how that comes of like, so we need a patient investors that they are giving funding, that they don't look for quick bucks return. They have a long-term view, knowing that this is a kind of future of like they invest, I mean, as early and knowing that, I mean, it's not a way that they are going to get it quicker. And you need to encourage, I mean, among the entrepreneurs to buy to each other, to support each other, and able to kind of like, I mean, be okay with what the local, I mean, entrepreneurs. So you need kind of like create that culture and make it cool through the, I mean, narrative that you are telling stories. I mean, was storytelling, it's a key to shift, I mean, from equality, because sometimes they kind of people see informal underserviced areas as inferior, that they not get a good innovation now. But through narrative and sharing the stories and exhibiting and showcasing, that makes, people kind of like, it's cool now to able to like, to buy local, to support local, and support, entrepreneurs now. So it's build the ecosystem, with all the partners involved, to able to build that now. And you build that through involving entrepreneurs not as a beneficiary, as a co-creators. Because this mentality for government or for a funder say that, oh, they are poor people, they are poor entrepreneurs, they look for funding. No. It's like, how can we build together, knowing that we're building for the betterment of the community and the society that we serve?
Wow, amazing.
Can I add a little bit to that?
Amir and then John, yeah.
So I totally believe that culture is the right thing. And what I've seen globally is that people go, they're successful, for example, in the States, and then they come back and they bring that success. And that creates a lot of, that's an amazing culture. So they become ambassadors of success, ambassador of cultures, and then the young generation sees that and says, I want to be that guy, I want to be that hero. So I really love that comment on culture.
I was going to say, you stole everything I was going to say. It was just, storytelling, culture shift, paradigm shift, education, all of those sorts of things. And in my world, in the world of activism, which in a sense, a really good activist is an entrepreneur too. Somebody who is totally willing to take risks. You can be incredibly innovative. You can have all the investment in the world, but if you're not willing to take that risk, then it's not going to go anywhere. People that have a backup plan, that have money or whatever, are probably more apt to take risks. But if you have that kind of embedded in your culture, embedded in your educational system, through storytelling, it's so key. Erick just mentioned I made this movie. It's called American Agitators, and it's really about telling the story of how people who have been grassroots activists have created change, because they are these social activist entrepreneurs. So I think all those factors are key, but you need this kind of collective combination in order for it to be effective.
Yeah.
Love it. All right, final question on my end, and I'll start jumping into your questions. And John Skajem, perhaps you can start us off with this. Our world has experienced lots of different cycles over the years, from booms and busts to wars and renaissances. Boy, try and say that word 10 times in a row. Renaissances. With what's happening in the world at this moment, what should we be doing in regards to innovation, investment, and entrepreneurship? So given this moment in history, what should we be focused on to make the world a better place in regards to innovation, investment, and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, thank you. The reason you're talking about the various cycles and the booms and the busts, and you're asking me, that's because I got plenty of gray hair. Anyway, I think in today's world, we are at the point where there's so many things that are happening, and we have an enormous opportunity ahead of us to do the right thing. It could also be that we do the wrong thing, but I'm saying that if you look back in history and look at some of the ups and downs, if we're looking at the boom and the bust of the technology bubble, the 90s were filled with optimism, and technology was like going to revolutionize the world. And then we have the tech bubble burst in 2001. And then, slowly but surely, technology became more and more mainstream. And when I went to see you, I had to send a letter to my mother. There was no internet, no mobile
email
phone,
or internet or Instagram.
No email.
You weren't Instagramming your mom.
Yeah, she got a letter every week. Yeah, no, but if you see how this has transformed, and today we have come to smartphones, we've come to AI, we've come to demand. Everything is so in the moment, and if you're not solving something instantly, you're just off. And it's very, very hard, I think, to keep up. But we have to keep up, otherwise we will become irrelevant. So I think today I really like to take advantage of the technology opportunities we have here to make sure that everybody is seen, everybody is able to contribute, We have 8 billion people on this planet, and most of us are not even involved. And if we can use technology to get everybody somehow involved, I think that will be very interesting. And in my world, it has been to allow people to have a financial technology platform that allows them to participate with having a bank account, being able to receive your, whether it's small or big salaries over a bank account, be able to pay with your smartphone. Now you can also invest. If you have small money, you can invest. Have you big money, you can invest. Before, if you didn't have like $100,000, the broker didn't even bother talking to you. But now with technology and the online trading and the online platforms, you can put $100 on it and get going. And that's what I call financial inclusion. And I think it starts with everybody needs to have some sort of safety behind it. So that's where my money goes.
Thank you so much. Reactions from the panel?
I see if you take the sport of entrepreneurship, it's like wave surfing. Like you're on your surf, and there's a lot of waves, and you need to find the right wave, and you need to take that wave, and you need to work really, really hard, and sometimes the wave crashes you, and sometimes you crash into another surfer, but all these ups and downs are opportunities to innovate. And I think maybe my message to you here is that we're on a crisp of a revolution around innovation, and that revolution is around the creation of software. How many of you are software engineers? Okay, so one. So I'm also a software engineer. In order to create a product up until 6 months ago, you had to be a software engineer, and you had to spend $100,000 to create a prototype for your software. Today, in the last 3-4 weeks, we've seen people create software with $90 and no engineering skills, just talking to AI and describing the application that they want to build. That AI creates that application and deploys that application. So any of you now have the skill to create software. So, and if you think about it, how crazy it is, we had the revolution of writing on the phone, and we had Twitter and Facebook, and then we had the video creation, which created TikTok and Instagram. Now we're on this crisp of creation of software. Any of you will be able to create any software with very limited skills, just the skill to describe what the change that you want to create. So I think that's the revolution that I'm seeing. Other than voting better, that's the biggest thing that we could do to impact.
Thanks, Amir. Amazing. Luvuyo, you'd mentioned earlier about entrepreneurship and storytelling and sharing stories about the heroes of entrepreneurship. Would you mind sharing a story of a recent entrepreneurial hero in your work?
Yeah, no, I mean, also there are many of those stories. I mean, like there's a young man, Ulufefe, from a Kailicha with 40 rands in the pocket, and he saw a need in the community that there was a problem around healthy food, like bread, which is a basic. And he started to use a spinach on the backyard, and he built a spinach bread. And he grows from spinach bread now to build a muffin, and then now he's kind of like different, product that he's building now. And he's built from having one center, he's got 6 franchises now, and it extended even beyond Cape Town to having a factory for that now. So there's one, there's Ulufefe, and the second one, Usizwe, saw the need that the chronic, elderly, they're struggling to go to public hospital. So he able to charge them a 10 rand. You go and pick up medication with those chronic, and then they charge it, and then they employ young ones in the township to use bicycle to deliver. He's got, almost like 10,000, elderlies who are depending on him now for that. And you've got many of these stories that like becomes local hero now, solving, because Africa is more, it's not about the next, it's about necessity. Issues that they are really dealing with on a daily basis now. That opens up now huge innovation. And what is missing with those innovative ideas, and those ideas can work every part on Africa and even beyond. It's the investment to take those businesses and scale them up and able to kind of like creating a big franchise model that can come in now. So that's what's probably the next, part now, because the part of these young, innovators in the continent, they come up with this amazing kind of product, but it's like remain on the periphery. And it's time now to kind of take that and bring with the tech and scale it and grow it. So that's why I kind of see those local stories that they can be next big businesses that they can employ people and then create, deal with the poverty and showcase for others that it's possible, they can done it. And because sometimes it's not about money, it's not about connection, it's about the will that we have it and you really how hungry you want to do it. And that's how entrepreneurs, test you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Do you think, just real quickly, do you think that the difference between those who succeed in something like this versus don't, the main factor is that will?
Yeah, it's because it's more like a grade where you come to a family where there's no safety net. You are only one who's a graduate,
right.
And your family expects you to go and find employment because you qualify to get employment, and you choose the entrepreneur journey. And at family, they're telling you are lazy, go and find employment. Your partners are telling you that, you're not, able to kind of contribute, and you continue believing in your vision, in your dreams, against all odds, and try to make it now. And that becomes a dread. That becomes like a thicker skin, and that becomes a resilience that really seeing out of all the negatives that are coming to you, and you find out, with that. And the funny part, which is like coming in the areas with it, informal, you find this challenging in the beginning. As you grow, you kind of attracting unnecessary pressures in the community because not everyone succeeds. For the way it's been meant, the system is meant, everyone must find employment, not be an entrepreneur. Once you succeed, there's this thing called pull him down syndrome, which is PhD. So same people that kind of like started with, they kind of like put you down. And we have to rise against all those odds in order to kind of showcasing that you can. So it takes a lot of like determination and the drive and believing in what you do.
Wow. John?
I heard you in your first introduction, and you said that the biggest problem for Africa is capital, and that there's lots of opportunities. Now, I have been investing in Africa for many years, and I'm wondering, there are some problems with pouring capital into Africa. And I'd just like to hear what you're saying in regards to how can technological innovations improve the livelihood and the situation in Africa without jeopardizing the investors who's actually coming with the key resource you need in order to be able to execute. Because there is money available, but there's so many bad examples or experience where you're being fooled, there's corruption, you're being lied to, there's no trust, there's nothing. And you're sitting there going like, wow, I had great intentions, but guess what? It didn't work out.
Yeah. No, you're right. The biggest problem, even informally, it's, if there's no data, if there's no kind of evidence base to understanding what's happening in part of informally underserviced areas, you'll find this kind of like, the problems now. So what is needed now is to build the ecosystem. And that you could able to do that through working with aggregators, could be the incubators or tech space or kind of organization now, because the danger is like to come up, you want to invest, and you kind of, we are going to go to a greenfield, you're investing anyway, and we're going to find these kind of problems now, because if you go through this program and you know part of the investment, they've been part of this kind of program they went through, and it's credible because, this thing is about trust. And trust is a currency that you need more than anything now. And the trust can be able to work with the local partners as part of the ecosystem to able to say who are the bankable. I mean, who are they can be able to be investing in the future now? Like ISA program, they work with entrepreneurs and with the local partners to identify those entrepreneurs that wants to grow now. Because if they are going on their own, they are going to have a problem of high churn and entrepreneurs not succeeding and then others not able to. So you need to kind of like collaborating with the partners in the way to build up now. But that can be done by building credible ecosystem. I mean, the best in California because of the ecosystem. I mean, Cape Town, I mean, it's best tech space because of the building the ecosystem. So what is needed to build ecosystem that is going to kind of unlock that value now? And that's where I'm saying that the ideas are there in Africa, but the funding is not coming in and based on people's experience before. And I think that you can't do alone. You have to work with the credible partners.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We've got some student questions here that we're going to jump into. Again, if you have additional questions, please just raise your hand. Let's tee this up for you, John. This is from a student. As a student in the U.S., how can I make an impact? Does that mean charitable donations? Does it mean changing my consumer behavior? Does it mean future investment? But more broadly, what does a student at this stage of life need to do in order to be able to make an impact?
I think the most important thing is to do your research. And I think there's tons and tons of opportunities, but I think for me, if I was in that position, I would be looking at where I could make the greatest impact with what I have. And oftentimes, I've found that is really investing on the on-the-ground situation, and sometimes in those small organizations and those entrepreneurs that you find out are really focused on making an impact. But I think there are so many ways that you can find out, through research and through people on the ground, who and what is the best approach to take.
Quick question. Many people are not privileged to have a lot of money to spend on these type of investments. Yeah. Is there ways where you can actually do something instead of money?
You're asking me?
Yeah. I think in lieu of paying in, can people contribute with labor or with?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always those opportunities, but I'm sometimes suspect of them if you don't get the buy-in that you need from those players that are live in the country, live in the community. I mean, to come in and say, I'm here and I want to help you, and perhaps this is the way we do it here versus what they need. And being able to work together on that, I think is critical. So yeah, I mean, I think there are lots of organizations and doing things like that, but at the end of the day, some are better than others, and I think there's no substitute for them being led from the particular place and that kind of on the ground information.
Great. I appreciate the riffing back and forth, everybody. Super cool. Another student question, and Amir, let's tee this up for you. The question is, what systematic changes do you think could be made in order to further foster connection to create innovation?
That's a good question. I think there's multiple ways. I think we need to have less centralization of innovation, at least in tech, and have more hubs around the world where innovation happens. So I would love to see like an amazing innovation center in India. And I'm starting to see that. I'm starting to see entrepreneurs that have been very successful in the US coming to India and opening an innovation there. I want to tie it to your answer and like, how can students make that impact? And when I was a very junior engineer, I started the habit of meeting founders, meeting entrepreneurs, meeting innovators, and just offering a few hours to help them out. And I found that to be radically useful Because first you meet people who have ideas. Maybe you can meet some of the people in Africa, and now you can do Zooms. You can do a lot of things to just meet and immerse yourself in problems. Understand problems and understand people who are trying to solve problems. This will train your mind to start thinking about innovation in a very unique way, because your mind will start seeing different problems in different cultures, and how do people deal with problems. And just donate, even if you don't have money, donate half an hour to an hour a day if you can, to just meet entrepreneurs all over the world if you can, and just tell them your opinions. Opinions are very cheap. They might throw your opinions away, but it might help them. So I think if we had more connections, if we had a better, more healthier public conversation, I'm not talking about the Twitter being toxic to each other, but more like having a place where we have a public conversation that is useful, I think innovation will come from that. So more connections, more dissemination of innovation, and at a very practical level, just go and meet founders. I'm sure all of you have skills that could help those founders, and that's a very rewarding experience that will train you to be an amazing entrepreneur.
The one thing that I just wanted to just sort of continue on with what I was saying, because I thought of an example that I think could be applicable here, and it's not necessarily having to do with investment and innovativeness and so on and so forth, but the concern being if you're somebody here wanting to help out, and the idea of imposing what you know and your model on somebody else can be really dangerous. And that's why I think the most important, as you said, is listening and understanding the ecosystem in which you're going to deal. I worked in Guyana in South America and ran a program called it was with the National Democratic Institute, and worked all over the world, including South Africa, trying to make processes more democratic. And so on paper, we had this wonderful program working with the legislature, working with the judiciary, working with civil society, working with the private sector. And one of the biggest problems in Guyana was there was a huge problem with domestic violence. And for the first time in the history of Guyana, because it had been a dictatorship for so many years, we actually got input from society on how to address that. And they finally came up with domestic violence legislation. Never done before. It was a huge success. But at the end of the day, you know who was in charge of enforcing that? It was the cops, who were the biggest perpetrators of domestic violence. So in a sense, we went in and we imposed what we knew to be something that worked here in the United States, and it didn't in Guyana because of that. So it was a huge lesson learned, and then we had trainings and with police and so on and so forth. But what I'm trying to say is I don't think we did a great job in kind of listening and understanding that ecosystem and where we were trying to create some type of change.
Awesome, thanks for that. I want to plus one a thought on Connect with Entrepreneurs, tactical takeaway for everybody here, especially our students. You can learn a lot just from learning their story and their insights. Next question, and John Skajem, perhaps you could jump us off with this one. Question is, with drying up of U.S. funding for innovation and aid around the world, do you think large corporations will be a source of donations and investments, or what are your thoughts about that element?
Why do I get all the easy answers?
Yeah, it's the gray hair. It's all the experience.
It's the gray hair.
Because you went to school here.
Well, certainly it became a shock to the whole NGO world when Mr. Trump put a cork in that funding. I think the result will be that countries and governments will continue to support. There will be more coming from other countries, where U.S. has been the superstar for so many years, and they've been miles ahead of the rest of the pack. And now I think other countries got to step up, and particularly in Europe, we have now suddenly got a wake-up call, really. And just a side note, NATO, which is, call it a peaceful cooperation between countries around Europe and the North Atlantic. Norway, being one of the richest countries in the world, we have spent roughly 0.5% of our GDP on military support to NATO. In the mantra, it says we all should spend 2%. Now, the general, what do you call it, Director General, he's Norwegian, and we didn't even follow up with it. And it's a disgrace. And then Trump, bluntly put it, saying, hey, you guys got to step up. So then, of course, this Labour government is like, oh yeah, oh. And then they, found money all over the place, and suddenly we're up to 2.5%. It wasn't all that difficult, and we do have enough money to pay for it. It's just that, they're lazy, and they don't prioritize it, and they don't listen, and they don't do anything. And now Europe got a serious wake-up call when Trump stopped the flow of funding to NGOs and to US aid. And I personally understand that at some point the US got to say, you guys got to step up too. So that's the easy answer to the question. Corporations. We discussed it this morning that there's a difficulty with corporations because they have a board of directors, they have shareholders that demand results. And in today's world, the globalization, it's becoming very easy to shift investments from one company to another. It's literally 2 clicks away, and I can move money left, right, and center. And if my investments don't perform, I'm going to go somewhere else because money talks. And now I'm going to say something that's not very diplomatic, but it is money talks. And I don't invest any money because it's nice. I invest money because I want to earn money. If it's nice on top of it, that's great. But I look for places where I can get a return that's acceptable without going over any boundaries. So as a company, I doubt that the companies will be very big on funding the gap, but I think other countries will definitely have to do it. And it's a call for the US, for the rest of us to step up.
Yeah,
Luvuyo and then John.
Yeah, if I can come in around this thing, because the impact on the ground is so severe. With many NGOs have been closed, that the employment they've lost, created the impact, especially on HIV, impact in the continent. But I think it becomes a new ways of doing things, even from Africa now, because the part of grant, it's not sustaining. It becomes a way of social entrepreneur now, where there's an impact, also where there's a profit. And I think it's part of even from challenging from you now, to kind of say, look at the world in a different way. I understand the investment, it has to come back to you. But look at it in a way that in the areas where the impact, the really dear need, it's needed, where you could invest, but to see that investment goes to the education, to the environment, to kind of like the difference in the communities, to extend that you can tick 2 things. You make your money, but also there's much more investment now. And that's what the social entrepreneurs become much more important now. And that's what it becomes like this kind of, because it's been there for last 25 years, talking about the social entrepreneur becoming at the center, but this is moving, becomes much more important now. So social entrepreneurs are going to be occupying that space of a grant and the profit, because that's where the solution is going to come in, because it's more about sustainability. Because we need to kind of like, as Africans, not to depend, to be on our own way, to extend that we can able to define our destiny. Because if not, we will find a situation like that, the kind of situation we find it now.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think that corporate support is going to step up to the plate anytime soon, because it is, they want immediate outcomes. It is about making money, and seeing the long term, down the road is often difficult. And I agree with you, the other countries around the world to step up the plate, but I'm surprised coming from a Norwegian, because my experience with Norway has been incredibly positive in terms of supporting civil society and projects and stuff that I've worked on around the world. But what's happened here in the United States has left an enormous gap. Every project that I've mentioned in the last 30 minutes has been supported by USAID that's no longer there. And we're talking, as Luvuyo said, whether it's AIDS or whether it's fostering. In Yugoslavia, I ran a project that fostered civil society. They never had a civil society before the war, and that's incredibly important in terms of a functioning democracy. And it hurts our security writ large. This isn't to say that other countries should also step up to the plate, but the way that it was done here in the state is just left an abrupt hole, and a lot of people have suffered.
Just a quick question, John. Norway, to not be mistaken, we are one of the largest contributors to the world development, and we're proud of that. However, there are situations where we could do a lot more, and I'm a wonderful fan of my country, but just small little anecdote. The Ukrainian war has made two countries very wealthy. One is Norway, the other is Qatar. And that's because we are Europe's largest exporter of gas, natural gas to Europe. So the money is just pouring in because now they don't get any gas from Russia. So we're making piles of money. The other thing is we are also the largest producer of electricity through our waterfalls. So we're exporting enormous amount of electricity at very high prices, because there's lack of electricity in Europe. We have, during the last 2 years, we have made $250 billion extra above and beyond our budget because of the Ukraine war. It's unbelievable. Now, of course, how much do you guys think that we have given to support Ukraine in the fight against Russia? 10 billion. 10 billion, of course, is a lot of money, but we should have given them 100 billion and say, listen, we're benefiting from this, not because we want to benefit from the war, that's not the point, but we are. But we should then say, here, take the money and, defend against the big bad bear, So it's interesting. But we got more money to come, and we will support, but we need to step up as well.
Well, I hope all of you appreciate, as I have, the global perspective that we're learning in so many different ways. So thank you for those perspectives. We have 4 minutes remaining in our session. So let's wrap up. Sorry we didn't have a chance to get to all these questions. Perhaps our guests will have a chance to linger afterwards if you'd like to ask your specific question. But let's have each of you share 60 seconds of a final thought around this topic of innovation, investment, and entrepreneurship, and how it can help the world. And John, why don't you start us off? Share a final thought.
Not you, John. Me,
Yes,
John. Okay.
Heffernan.
It's hard not to reiterate everything I've already said and what everybody else has said up here. To me, it's all about communication, and it's about building that collective power that can affect change, and sharing these stories of success, and again, but focusing on the fact that you have to have buy-in. If we're talking about foreign investment, we're talking about foreign entrepreneurs coming in. You need to have that buy-in on the ground from people in those respective communities, in those respective countries.
Thank you. Amir?
So I think I want to finish with a thought that I was talking to students yesterday in a class, and I think it's very important to say it again and again and again with a young audience. Everybody could be an entrepreneur. You say that there are entrepreneurs and there's me. Everybody could be an entrepreneur. Everybody's lost just like everyone else. If you love a problem and you really think that it needs to be solved, go and try to solve it. And I think, and gather other people who can try to solve it. And this entrepreneurship, it could be social entrepreneurship, it could be tech entrepreneurship, it could be Africa-based entrepreneurship, but moving from talking and thinking to actually acting is extremely useful mechanism for entrepreneurship. So go and try to solve a problem, even if it's the most silly problem, and then to try to solve another problem and another problem, and that is the way you create impact. He didn't start this fintech unicorn by just thinking about it. He fell in love with the problem. And he tried many things before, I'm sure. Like I tried many things before the startup that I sold to Twitter. So go and try again and again. That's my call to action.
Thank you. Well said. John?
I'm very optimistic about the future. I think we have some great times ahead of us, and that's because there's so many wonderful people that are creative, are innovative, and they actually have the guts to do it. And if you see around nowadays, I mean, there's so many great ideas coming to market. And that's because people are bold, they try to do it, they get to do it. And, you know, I just love it. And I think, you know, we're in for the ride, so enjoy.
Great. Luvuyo, wrap us up.
Yeah, no, I mean, we are living in interesting times now, more than before. With all these challenges, problems that we're finding now, entrepreneurs are the enablers for that. By building communities, you're unlocking innovation, you're also unlocking investment through those entrepreneurs that are part of the community.
Well, I couldn't have said it better myself. So, John, Amir, John, Luvuyo, thank you so much for taking the time. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you for having us.